Now, I'm an expert on a few things, a real expert on one or two. Guinea and Africa, I'm not so up to the minute. So if you know what's going on in Guinea right now, we want to hear from you. When I hear that a president is being overthrown by the military, I don't usually jump for joy, and I'm not jumping for joy with this one. Although the current, or maybe deposed, president of Guinea was once one of Tony Blair's great Africa adventure. The white man's burden was assumed by Tony Blair. He got to work reordering the affairs of Africa once the kaleidoscope had been shaken by the events of 9/11. And he picked favorites. Some of them are still his favorites, like Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda. Others, like Museveni in Uganda, not so much, though they were once the blue-eyed boys of the IMF and the World Bank, as well as Tony Blair, Inc. Museveni is now regarded as moving in the direction of China. There is a great ideological, geopolitical struggle going on in Africa. On one side are the colonial powers who want to take things out of Africa. On the other side is China, which for the time being at least wants to put things into Africa, like roads and bridges and infrastructure and internet, and try to help the local regimes and governments there to drag their people out of poverty as the Chinese state has dragged its. Of course, people are rightly anxious that we don't swap one colonial power with another colonial power. The difference is China has never acted so far as a colonial power, where the actual colonial powers have been doing so in Africa for centuries. So in the context of that geopolitical, ideological struggle, everything must be seen. And so what I can see so far as happening in Guinea is that the head of an elite military force trained, in fact, the pictures are not a week old, by AFRICOM, by the American military effort going on all over Africa in a very substantial way, has captured the existing president of the country, whose whereabouts are now unknown. There's a fight going on, though. Other elements of the army, not in the elite forces, are fighting to save his presidency. As we get news throughout the course of the show, we'll bring it to you. And any experts out there, I'm just the enthusiastic amateur, remember, can call the show or tweet us. Let us know your perspective on the events unfolding in Guinea. Now, of course, it's Sunday, so of course there's another Sunday newspaper scandal to be faced by the poor reigning monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, whose family have dragged her into one scandal or another. Everybody knows, and we've covered it very closely, the travails caused to the Queen by the activities, alleged activities, of Prince Andrew and the Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Victoria Giuffre affair. And we will, of course, follow that story right to the end. But this time, it's rather more serious even than that, because the prince in disgrace this weekend is the one who will be King of England, King of the United Kingdom, the very moment that life passes from Her Majesty Long Life Tour, for lots of reasons. First of all, because she doesn't get into scandals, and secondly, because the moment she passes, Prince Charles becomes the king. Now, Charles has got a lot of, how shall I put it, weak points. But one of them is the man that he has appointed as head of the Prince's Trust, his main financial vehicle. That man has been sacked twice and brought back twice because the Prince is exceedingly close to him, especially in the past. The Prince can't live without him, he said when bringing him back for the second time after his second sacking. He's now been sacked a third time because of a lurid story this weekend about that individual's relationship to a squalid Saudi billionaire to whom he offered in print, in black and white, on his own headed notepaper, support for a knighthood in exchange for £1.5 million donated to the Prince's Trust to assist with its overhaul and upgrade of a house not that far from where I live called Dumfries House. Now, these kind of things, these offerings of honours in exchange for favours happen all the time. But they are a criminal offence. And so I suppose if you're in the honours broking business, the trick is not to get caught doing it. But this genius put it in a letter that we will support, Mr. Saudi oligarch, your application for British citizenship and the upgrading of the honour you've already got from Prince Charles into a full knighthood. Now, the man has now stepped down. His name is Fawcett. I know American viewers and listeners will be laughing already about that. The tap has been turned off for the moment, but the media are in full hot pursuit of Mr. Fawcett, and by extension, the man who has thrice appointed him to his right hand. When I say he was his right-hand man, I don't imply anything improper there. I know nothing of the Prince's private life beyond that which he himself brought into the public. But Mr. Fawcett is metaphorically not only his right-hand man, not only his deep throat through which he leaks all kinds of politically inspired initiatives and views, but is his chief factotum, his flunky in toto. And now the Prince is without him. If the crown is anything to go by, I can just imagine Prince Charles climbing the walls at the moment. But doesn't this story demonstrate the deep corruption that lies at the heart of British public life? It's covered in a veneer of hokum pokum. It's covered in a veneer of elaborate, performative politeness. But it's just as corrupt as any potentate in Africa or Asia or anywhere else. It's just usually delivered rather more circumspectly, rather more politely, gently than it has been on this occasion. We'll be talking to the Right Honourable Norman Baker, a Privy Councillor. That means a councillor not to the Queen's privy, but to the Queen herself. He is the author of a very powerful book that we have showcased on the show before, and he's demanding that the Metropolitan Police investigate this cash for honours scandal. We'll be talking also about Afghanistan. It seems like an age now that the Taliban have been in power. Predictably, they are scrubbing the beauty parlours and ladies' hairdressers of anything that could remotely look like a woman. Sounds a bit like Nicola Sturgeon's Scotland, where, of course, it's all chest-feeding and pregnant people, and where the rights of men to identify as women is now trampling underfoot the hitherto existing and hard fought for rights of women. We'll be touching on that subject too. And we'll be looking at an allegation in a new book, predictably called Bombshell, against a personal, not hero, he wasn't great enough for long enough to be a hero, but someone for whom, for a variety of reasons, I hold in great affection. I refer to Bobby Kennedy. According to the author of this book, Bobby Kennedy murdered Marilyn Monroe. Yes, with his own hands, he murdered her because she was apparently about to, if you'll forgive the phrase, blow the fact that she'd had an affair with Jack Kennedy, the president, and Bobby Kennedy, the Attorney General. I'm not sure who would have published that at the time. And for the author, helpfully, no documentation exists to support the allegation that she was about to blow, and all the participants are helpfully dead and beyond suing. If that sounds jaundiced, it kind of is, but I'll give the author a fair crack of the whip. Because I'm old-fashioned. In the week that Chinese TV has banned what they call sissy men from the television screen, men that are effeminate, and ordered all the networks to replace them by what they called real men, I'm here to tell you that the mother of all talk shows is presented entirely by a real man. Nobody ever called me sissy. It's going to be a great show, I think. We'll be talking about all kinds of things. But I want to close with something that is of interest generally, but of special interests where I live in Scotland. There's an organisation called Women Won't Wheesht. Wheesht. Women won't stay quiet. We have reached a situation in Scotland now where, as I told you last week, and 522,416 people watched me tell you, that's how many watched the show last week, that children aged 4, i.e., my middle daughter, Orla, aged 4, is now entitled to tell her teacher she wants to be regarded and treated as a boy and called not Orla but Oliver. She wants to be able to use the boys' lavatories, get changed in the dressing room with the boys, play in the boys' sports leagues at 4. And worse, dear viewer, dear listener, that the school will give her an undertaking that they will not tell me or her mother that that's what she's doing in school every day. This monstrous excrescence of the so-called LGBTQI+ agenda has reached stratospheric levels of madness. So much so that a mosque bomber in the United States has just asked the American justice system to treat her as a woman prisoner. And so her putative mass murder will enter history as having been carried out by a woman rather than a man. It's reached such madness that when men who identify as women were literally threatening with violence, the women won't wished protesters outside the Scottish Parliament on their pots and pans demonstration just a few days ago in Edinburgh. The police were more likely to arrest the women demanding the rights of women than they were to arrest those threatening violence upon those women who were dressed as women, who identify as women, but were in fact men. And the reason for the protest was not just these guidelines to which I have just referred, but because a woman was on trial from their organization in Scotland for wearing a suffragette ribbon, which has become the motif of those that demand women's rights be protected in Scotland. She's on trial for that. It's a hate crime to stand up for women in Scotland today. Don't think I'm being parochial, because all of this garbage came from the United States in the first place, and it is sweeping across the Western world. Who knows? Maybe it'll be implemented in Guinea if the coup goes the right way.